Good evening, everybody. Please be seated. Evening. You all right? Long time no see. Welcome to the meeting of full council this evening. I am the Mayor of Rugby, Councillor Simon Ward, and will be chairing the meeting. This meeting is being web streamed to the public through the council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, if you wish to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I will ask the Deputy Chief Executive to provide details of the evacuation procedure for those present.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening all. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm does sound, then please make your way out of the building, down the main staircase, out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return.
Are there any apologies, Deputy Chief Executive?
Mr. Mayor, I have apologies from Councillors Sam Edwards and Councillor Slinger.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the special meeting of Council held on the 4th of February. I move that the minutes of the special meeting of Council held on the 4th of February 2025 be approved and adopted. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. The motion is carried. Item 3, so declarations of interest. Can I remind members that when they declare interest, they must also declare the general nature of that interest? Are there any declarations under non-pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors? Councillor?
Yeah, I'm a trustee of the Eco Hub, and they are mentioned in the budget.
Councillor O'Rourke?
I'm hoping to be a trustee of the Eco Hub as well, but I am a member. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Mowdis?
Yeah, item 6A, sorry, I'm an employee of Dunchurch Parish Council. Thank you.
Councillor Willis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Chair of Wolston Parish Council.
Just looking around, anybody else? Anybody been missed? No? Okay, that's all noted. Okay, pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. No. Notice, Councillor Mackenzie?
Sorry, point of order. If they're going to put £100 as a proposal for £100 for everybody over 60, then surely anybody who would receive it should declare an interest.
On that note, I'll hand over to the Senior Legal Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given that the proposal at the moment, as set out within the recommendation or the amendment, is relatively framework in nature in terms of creating a fund in relation to payments, at this point we do not consider that it meets the actual requirements for a formal declaration of pecuniary interest. That may change at a future point, given, if specific details would come forward. But at this point, the corollary I would draw would be that around the setting of the overall council tax and the sort of generic nature of that. So that would be the analogy we draw. Thank you.
Councillor Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Can I just clarify, so are you saying that because the recommendation or the amendment doesn't actually have any detail behind it, that's the reason that it doesn't need to be declared?
Thank you. If I can, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the specific proposal that is before us, and at this point in time, it doesn't have that necessity for it. What I would turn around and say is, obviously, any future report that would become before Council, or indeed Cabinet for that matter, we would obviously look at the precise details of that at the point in time that came before members and would advise accordingly. I wouldn't wish to prejudge what that might be.
Okay. That clarifies. And item 3C, notice under section 106, Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Okay. On to item 4, so my mayoral announcements. So Rugby Brough Women FC were awesome in their FA Cup 5th round tie against WSL side Liverpool on Sunday. To hold the WSL team for over 80 minutes of the game was incredible, and there were some great moments too. A massive occasion for the team, the club, the supporters and the whole of rugby. Everyone was right behind them with amazing support. It was quite a logistical operation for the club to welcome so many supporters and press, which they achieved without any problems. A real highlight for me was seeing so many children, particularly young girls, inspired by the team and the time that the players spent with them, signing autographs, having photos taken, gifting items and so much more, which leads me on to my passion for the game, football coaching, and inspiring youngsters with my mayoral theme, being youth also. I'm keen, along with some of the Rugby Brough women's players, to visit local schools where possible, to chat to the children. Any local schools that might be interested in this and hearing from the players, then please do get in touch with the mayoral office. You can Google Contact the Mayor of Rugby for details of how to get in touch. The team, as it happened, they're back in league action tonight with an away trip to top of the league, Notts Forest, and have another big cup game this Sunday at Kilsby Lane in the County Cup semi-final with a 2 p.m. kick-off against Stourbridge. I hope that the support for the team continues following the FA Cup run, as they are a talented group, very entertaining to watch, play some great football, and we should all be really proud of them. And I've actually got a couple of quotes from a couple of the players as well that I'll read out. So the first one, thank you to everyone that came to support us. You were definitely heard. As a professional club that's embedded in the local community, one of our main aims is to inspire young girls and boys in the area. We've had some incredible feedback from parents and fans from our FA Cup game on Sunday against Liverpool Women, and it's reassuring to know we are doing just that. We loved seeing you all, and we hope to see you at more of our games going forward to continue building on our success. Up the Borough. And that's from Yasmin Mosby. And I've also got another quote. That's, I would like to pass on a message to everyone in the borough to thank you all for your support. It was inspiring for us on the pitch to be in the presence of so many fans, and we hope we inspired the girls and boys that came too. You all really rallied us on through every moment. Thank you also to all the fans that watched at home. Last year we won the Birmingham County Cup. This Sunday we are again in the same semi-final at home. If you can make it, we would love to see your support again. And that was from Katie Morris. And just one final thing, also do check out the player-led Equal FA Cup campaign set up by one of the players, Rhian Cleverly, which is so important. So I'd urge everyone to have a look at that as well. Thank you. Now on to item 5, so questions pursuant to Standing Order 10. Are there any questions, Deputy Chief Executive?
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Item 6A, to receive the report of Cabinet dated 3rd of February 2025. In submitting the report of Cabinet, if members wish to raise questions or to comment, will they please indicate they wish to do so when I call the item. The supplementary report, which has been circulated to all members, will be considered along with this item. Members are reminded that the requirement in the Council's constitution that no councillor may speak for more than 5 minutes does not apply when Council considers the annual budget. I would ask all councillors to keep their contributions to the point and not to repeat the comments of previous speakers unnecessarily. If I consider that any speech is unduly long or repetitive, I will ask that councillor to close their speech. Please note, in accordance with usual practice, a recorded vote will be taken on the amendment and the substantive motion. Members will therefore be asked individually to indicate how they are voting on both proposals, and names will be recorded in the minutes. In order that this item can be dealt with as a single debate, including the proposal of amendments, Council Standing Orders paragraph 13.6e will need to be suspended. Who will move the motion that Council Standing Orders 13.6e be suspended?
Might as well. Nobody else seems to be doing it.
Who will second the motion? Councillor Bennett. Those in favour, please show. That's carried. Motion is carried. Members are reminded that they may only speak once as part of the single debate, with the exception of the proposers of both the budget and the amendment. Councillor Moran, will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 1 of the report titled Council Tax Base 2025-26, Draft General Fund Revenue and Capital Budget 25-26, and Medium Term Financial Plan 2025 to 2035, together with the supplementary report?
I will.
Who will second the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will second the motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Moran, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is an absolute pleasure and an honour to move the motion for the budget, the primary budget this evening. This budget is the first non-Conservative budget for more years than I wager anyone can remember. And boy, does it show. In a break with the past, this budget has been carefully considered. This budget has been the product of engaged debate and collaboration. Most of all, this is a budget that actually makes sense. It stands on its own 2 feet, addressing current issues as well as setting out a programme for the future. First of all, before getting into it, I want to thank my colleagues in the Cabinet and across the Labour Group for their hard work and inputs. I also want to thank equally the Liberal Democrat Group for all their long hours, their selfless attitude towards doing what's best for the borough, and helping us collectively sort out the basket case that we inherited. First of all, this budget is ultimately the product of hard work from various council staff, including, of course, John Illingworth and his team, so thank you sincerely. Speaking of staff does bring me to culture, and here I'm pleased to say this has improved immensely since June. Our chief officers are all highly qualified, they're experienced, and they're individual experts in their own fields. This year onwards, they're actually being tasked with individual responsibility for their department budgets. That change on its own gives incredibly qualified professionals the best opportunity to deliver an accurate budget. We also inherited a council structure that is not fit for purpose. 11 direct reporting lines into a chief executive is not conducive to good delivery for residents. With a new acting CEO and a new senior director to come in imminently, a new structure of reporting lines will be put in place. Going forward now, chief officers will be supported to succeed. The detail of the budget is in everyone's papers, and other colleagues will be in touch, also will touch on, I'm sure, certain areas. But just personally, I'd like to highlight the £1 million investment into the Work Services Unit to build resilience and improve on service levels to our residents. This is a department that was previously underfunded, yet was still tasked to deliver savings. Absolutely crazy. It was also a department into which the property repairs services was shoehorned into. A bolt-on service that was targeted towards going out into the market and earning cash for the council, despite being fundamentally ill-equipped to achieve that. By moving property repairs into the housing portfolio, it can actually concentrate on improving our HRA estate, and it declutters the Work Services Unit into the bargain. Now, the Chief Officer has performed Herculean tasks of late in that Work Services Unit. That may be a hint for a good pay rise. But with proper investment to come, the Chief Officer and her staff can concentrate on deliver that primary, crucial core function. Everything we do must be measured in terms of financial competence. Proper budget setting, where finances are measured in simple terms. Actual income, actual expenditure. Forecasts that are accurate, not ones that are expected to vary wildly in the year. It's also a budget with inbuilt flexibility. Our Bible going forward is our recently adopted corporate strategy. Working with chief officers, the Cabinet, along with shadow colleagues, we can focus week to week, month to month on meeting those objectives for a greener, a fairer and a better rugby. By dedicating £1 million commitment to this strategy, beyond our current activities, we actually give ourselves as a council an opportunity to succeed. Now, I said this was a budget for the future, not just this current year. We've addressed the business rate settlement once and for all, so we can put rugby onto a sound financial footing. As opposition leader last year, I asked the then leader and the then portfolio holder for finance, could they not speak to their Conservative colleagues in Westminster to get an insight into the future direction of business rates policy? Alas, they had no contacts, and so therefore we were given no clues. By contrast, we had a government minister in rugby within 1 month of the new government taking place in July. We're acting on that intelligence now to put in place a sensible financial plan for the borough. By putting in place that sensible strategy on reserves, we are acting like any serious financial institution in creating the headroom for serious capital investment. The regeneration of Rugby Town Centre is a focus of our work going forward, and I look forward to a meeting at the end of the month with that working group to get into the details. But be in no doubt, colleagues, it's going to involve serious investment underpinned by due professional advice. Now, as a council, we'll be getting into uncharted territory. And I say this as having recently had various discussions in Warwick with Warwickshire County Council colleagues and other district leaders. And the topic of major capital investment programmes was raised. But of course, apart from Buyout Place, Navigation Way, we didn't have any to inherit. Now, I'm conscious in touching on the theme of town centre investment, there are alternative political viewpoints. I know the Conservatives were never serious about committing public investment to a regeneration programme, and I know their friends in Reform believe no public money should ever go into a town centre redevelopment scheme. Well, both are wrong. The town centre in Rugby has declined enormously through mismanagement. That is evidenced by the 100 and more town centre businesses that signed a letter of no confidence in the Conservative administration last year. Putting a sense of pride and purpose back into rugby is key to stimulating long-term economic activity and inward investment. In turn, it will lead to a payback in business rates. More than that, though, regenerating our town centre will help civic pride and build social and cultural objectives, and that will all help our well-being. I won't go into more details because there's going to be lots of debate on town centre to come. Look, for me, the defining characteristic of this administration is that it's serious about tackling important issues rather than ignoring them. An approach I believe is common amongst the Liberal Democrat and the Labour groups. Now, I won't get into detail on a couple of points here, but we've inherited a really good handful of complex and challenging issues that were pretty much just ignored. Now, all of which have financial implications, so all of which are relevant for a functioning council going forward. Climate change. I always forget the exact year that emergency was declared, 2019, 2018. Nothing spent, nothing done. Commercialisation. Nothing. We've got a paper on a commercialisation strategy for the council. No substance, no detail, nothing ever happened. Transformation. If ever there's a wrong word for a fund that doesn't get spent. Nothing done. This council hasn't transformed in recent years. Brandon Stadium. Whichever side of the fence that you're on, and we had a great debate here in this council, where every single councillor, I believe, voted unanimously to save Brandon Stadium, bring it back to life. That motion was moved eloquently and at length by my favourite Conservative councillor, Gillias. there's not many to choose from. But seriously. I'm the one doing the speaking. But about Brandon again, there's an example of a big old derelict site. We have an impassioned speech that we all welcomed under a Conservative council. Again, you'll forgive me, you've lost so many seats recently, I forget. Did you have a majority, complete majority at the time, or was it no overall control? Either way, you were in the chair, Conservative leadership of the Borough Council, absolute total dominance county council, a Conservative government, if you call it that, in Westminster. You could have sorted out Brandon one way or another, and you didn't. Councillor Gillias, you were certainly the first Conservative I contacted after that full council, and I was elected leader. I said to you I'd sort it. Since then, I believe it's fair to say I've been true to my word. Either we'll bring forward that regeneration plan for a new Brandon Stadium, or those investors will have had their chance and will politely, the Brandon Stadium investors, they've had their chance, go. Because behind the scenes, there's a good residential scheme with green space and affordable housing. Either way, it needs a council to get involved and to do its job. Digitisation. There was a £500,000 budget, apparently, for improving digitisation in this council. I'm reliably informed in August 24, we had 47 distinct IT systems, not many of whom talk to each other. St Cross, health provision. How often is this being talked about? How many years nothing was done? Following the unannounced or unconsulted closure of Hosking Ward, we spent some money, we challenged it in court. The product of that is getting a debate on local healthcare that we've never had before. Gypsies and traveller sites. Where do I start on that? A local plan that didn't have any provision. These are all challenges that require money and effort and resource to solve. Customer contact centre is improving. Rugby First, look forward to discussing that. At one point, there were Conservative councillors who were directors of Rugby First. At the same time, we were at such loggerheads with them, we were exchanging solicitors' letters. It's crazy. We've not had an easy task, we're doing our best. So in a nutshell, this budget is about grown-up politics. For the first time in decades, we're delivering meaningful investment into rugby. We're working with offices to deliver a council that's fit for purpose. But we firmly believe a budget is not a one-off event. This administration and colleagues, we're different. Working week to week, month to month, believing investment is an ongoing process. Invest to grow, invest to save. Each of the capital items we're putting forward are subject to clear business cases and audits. That should go without saying. I'd also like to point out that we have a clear desire to measure social value alongside financial returns. That's critically important, and it's often been overlooked. The other aspect of grown-up politics is acting with integrity. And I ask that everyone please focus on the facts. Now, I say that as in preparing for this meeting, did a bit of background research to previous leaders' speeches, giving some guidance. And I was shocked to learn that in 2023, Councillor Seblo announced this building was being sold. It wasn't, it isn't. But that's perhaps an example of the type of material being put into those type of speeches. This isn't about that. This is serious leading a council. So as stated from the outset, this is the first progressive budget for many decades. It's a collaboration from a wide array of councillors with extensive experience. It's a budget that sets in train a plan for Rugby Borough to perform better for its residents. It's a budget that delivers a greener and a fairer borough, and it's a budget that I implore you all to support. Thank you.
Are there any speakers? Councillor Poole.
There's no speakers. I would like to move the alternative budget resolution on behalf of the Conservative Party.
Who will second that?
Mr Mayor, I will second that and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Poole, would you like to introduce the amending?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very eloquent, again, Mr Moran, Councillor Moran. Half of it was about central government, not us. But, if I may, Mr Mayor, I'd like to take the council chamber back to 2023, when I became the leader of this council, 23-24, and Councillor Moran was the leader of the opposition group, the Labour group. The chamber should clearly remember, because I do, and my group do, that every opportunity in this council chamber, at full council, Councillor Moran slated the Conservative administration for saying there's a £2 million black hole in your finances, this, that and the other about the finances. This only happened at full council meetings. Never happened at cabinet because he was never there. However, what a difference a year makes. But every opportunity, however, what a difference a year makes. So on May the 2nd, 2024, Councillor Moran became leader of the council and took control of the administration, ably assisted by the Liberal Democrats. There's been no mention, Mr Mayor, no mention whatsoever of the black hole since he became leader. I wonder why that is. Let's move on swiftly to July the 4th, 24, and we all know what happened then. Let's go on to July the 29th, when the Minister, the Chancellor of the government, stopped heating bill payments to our 17,000 pensioners in Rugby. That doesn't include those that were eligible for pension credit and those on assisted benefits, means-tested benefits. She then went on to state that the government, like Councillor Moran has stated here, there's a £22 billion black hole in the government finances. Yet, they paid £11 billion to the trained drivers, £8 billion to the young doctors, and £11 billion to Africa for climate initiatives. So where was the £22 billion black hole? I will stop there, Mr May, after the background and move swiftly on to our resolutions. The Council General Fund Capital Budget for 25-26 shown in Appendix 7 of the budget booklet, Appendix A of the Council Act's Determination 25-26 in the report. This includes the continuation programme and schemes approved in the year, and the potential new schemes like the changing rooms to the GEC, which will require a separate business case and are not included in this budget. With the following potential, if I can get the paper written, potential variations. A, submission of a business case for the flood defences to address flooding in the Borough of Rugby, implementing the Environment Agency proposals within Woolston as a pilot scheme, £3 million. B, submission of a business case to explore the expansion of CCTV retail areas throughout the Rugby urban area tied into the town centre CCTV network. C, submission of a business case to purchase one large road sweeper, £250,000. D, submission of a business case for the purchase of festival lights for Sheep Street and North Street in Rugby, which can be used for other festivals apart from Christmas, as there is nothing up there to support the residents and the shop owners. And I'll move on to the grant funding with the following variations. A, funding for 17,000 pensioners in the Borough of Rugby to put in place after the removal of the winter fuel payment taken by Rachel Reeves This will be a 2-year scheme, but only 1 year is included in this resolution of £1.7 million. This does not include those on pension credit and other means tested benefits. B, additional funding for On Track to help tackle antisocial behaviour. Areas of focus to be Bilton, Hill Morton and Wolfston, £100,000. The establishment of a driver for the new road sweeper and maintenance, £50,000. All this use of business rates equalisation reserve to cover the additional costs, which is total of £1.85 million. Mr Mayor, I so move.
Okay, moving on to speakers. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody that we're going to have one single debate, so which covers both the report and the amendment. So are there any speakers? Councillor Livesey?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say something about my portfolio, and I'm really pleased to see the investment that's going into the work services unit, and also that we're going to set up a pooled staff to cover annual leave, so we'll be able to keep focused on driving down agency costs, because we've been so heavily reliant on that for so long, and this is one way of dealing with that. And on the environment, we're going to be working with the Warwickshire Wildlife Trust to bring forward projects for schools so that we can engage young people. We had the World Cafe event back in November, not really very appealing to young people, so we're getting the experts in and going to do something with schools across the borough to get them engaged in environmental and climate change matters. And finally, I just wanted to say I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted that we've got £100,000 set aside for a feasibility study into a community centre in Coton Park, which has long been asked for by the residents, and at last we've been able to find a way of perhaps getting this moved along and built so that they've got somewhere to have meetings, to hold parties and to generally get together. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers? Councillor Gillius just got up before you. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of points, but yeah, I'll just going back to the Brandon Stadium, because as soon as you mention Brandon Stadium, you see, all the YouTube views go up by triple. At least triple. At least triple. So my notice of motion way back in December 22, that's when I had smooth skin and black hair, you see. Quite a while ago. But yes, I tend to think that the demise of such a iconic sporting venue should be down to the failure of the sports rather than the influence of a developer. And that's what we've seen there, haven't we, for the last number of years. But I just want to speak a little bit about the road sweep, because I'd lead a very, very sad life. Because most of my day I'm driving around the borough, doing little jobs now, because I'm well past my sell-by date. So, so on an average week, I'm probably driving something like 250 to 300 miles just within the borough. And of course, rather than counting sheep, you count blocked drains and gullies and detritus and all that sort of thing. And I know I've spoken to the Chief of Service on this many times, and they're restricted quite a lot because they've only got 2 road sweepers and restricted on drivers that drive those road sweepers. But I'm of the old school, you see, where if you do a little and often, you keep on top of your maintenance. And if you keep on top of the maintenance, it keeps the costs down, and things like minor flooding or even major flooding is a real benefit to all our communities. That's why we put this in our offer about a road sweeper and a driver. And I think that would benefit the borough long term, because of course we're expanding, and when we look back just 20 years, and when you get to a certain age, see, 20 years is just like the other day. And so 20 years ago, this borough has probably expanded within that 20 years, probably by about a third, for those who can remember, all that expansion. And it's important we keep on top of that maintenance, because we'll benefit from that in the long run. And I hope we can support that. Thank you.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Labour government's decision to abolish councils like Rugby within the life of this Parliament will change our local political landscape forever. During this party's time in charge of this council, we diligently saved each year in preparation for possible changes to business rates retention. However, following Angela Rayner's recent announcement, the threat of that is now effectively over. Rugby Council's reserves, including money for climate change and town centre regeneration, must be spent for the benefit of Rugby residents and businesses rather than being swallowed up by any future Warwickshire council. That's why we've made the budget proposals that we have. We are recommending a fund to provide £100 for every pensioner who has lost their winter fuel allowance since this Labour government took office in July. We will deliver almost £3 million to address flooding issues in our rural communities, an amount much closer to the Environment Agency's estimates to fix the most pressing flooding issue in our borough. We'll expand the CCTV network beyond the town centre to cover other retail areas in the urban area, such as Brownsover, Overslade and Bilton. This investment will ensure any future Rugby Town Council is adequately prepared to serve its residents. We know that blocked drains, as Councillor Gillies has said, are a common complaint of residents across our town. The purchase of an additional road sweeper and funding for additional staff will go a long way to ensuring roads and pavements are kept clean, helping to keep drains clear, preventing unnecessary flooding in the process. We will continue our previous investment in the town centre by adding lights and decorations to both Sheep Street and High Street. We will increase funding for on-track youth provision, reducing the necessity for grant funding and to improve the offer currently available. We will investigate improvements to the change rooms at the GEC and will bring forward 3 years' worth of park improvement money to make much-needed improvements to more of Rugby's parks now. This money will be in addition to the significant funding for numerous projects that we brought to Council last year. We will bring forward money to support parish councils in our rural communities, parish councils that are set to be battered by the national insurance increase for their clerks. We are also promising to quickly bring forward town centre regeneration on projects decided on by the Town Centre Regeneration Working Party if they demonstrate good value for money and will truly benefit Rugby residents and businesses. This immediate significant investment is vital because of the government's decision to scrap councils like ours. Our reserves are not our reserves. They are Rugby Borough residents' reserves. We can't risk Rugby residents' hard-earned reserves being taken by our future leaders in Warwick, and therefore we must ensure they are spent to benefit Rugby residents and businesses, not spent on cycle lanes in Stratford or a bus stop in Atherstone. These proposals ensure financial security to pensioners this winter and next, improve our town centre and parks, will reduce flooding and will help ensure any future town council is adequately resourced to provide a good service to residents within the urban area. And that's why I'll be supporting the Conservatives' budget proposal.
Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Daly, just want to take your mic.
Yes. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be supporting the Conservatives' budget recommendation because I think for 5 years they did nothing. Rugby Town Centre just declined and declined and declined. And though their previous leader, not this Derek, because I think Derek's tried his best, but he was trying to resolve a problem that was neglected over the previous 5 years. I think the positive things to look at in rugby is we have actually won a major global provider, retail provider, is actually coming to this town. It's going to make a major investment. Will provide over 7,000 jobs. That's not to be sniffed at. I welcome that within the Conservative proposals, they also recognise the need to upgrade GE Sports recreation ground. For too long, we've only put resources into one recreation ground, not very far away, and we've neglected many of the other recreation grounds that really have needed investment. I also know that Olwyn Road is also looking to upgrade its changing rooms, and we approved an application for their last night, Mr Mayor. I've seen some very negative comments on certain websites from who I think can only be described as climate deniers, knocking the Eco Hub. The Eco Hub's doing a storming bit of business at the moment. It's really attracting an awful lot of people to it, and members will be pleased to hear that the Repair Cafe will not be open just once a month now, it will be open twice a month. With help from the Environmental Services Department, we're going to get the kitchens up to a higher standard than they are at the moment after Age Concern moved on. So again, that is a new and successful project in Rugby. So let's welcome what the good things we got, but let's recognise we still have a lot of things that need attention. The other thing is, yes, the pretty lights will be lovely. Let's try and fix a few pavements and a few potholes as we go along as well, please. Our town centre is held together by 80-year-old bylaws, which haven't seen a prosecution in anybody's lifetime, and TROs, traffic regulation orders, that make Rugby Town Centre pedestrianised area lethal on the weekend because there's no control over a Saturday and a Sunday. It's wide open for a Munich-type attack. It really is. The county ignored it when it was last proposed, and it's been ignored again. So I know the leader of the council has picked up on this, and I know that the officers are promised to bring a report in the new municipal year. So, 5 years of alacrity is not acceptable. And then to just fritter the pounds away, rather than investment in the town centre, is just not acceptable, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I start by saying thank you to the officers in my portfolio for all of their support and hard work. I think one of them was mentioned in Parliament last week. Can I also say a big thank you to Councillor Sanderson for all his hard work and input. We've attended lots of meetings and had a few sort of tricky issues to deal with at the start, but we've got them, we've got really good outcomes because we have worked in collaboration, which is something I always wanted to do when we were in opposition, but we're actually now able to do that. I'd like to say thank you as well to Councillor Dumpleton, who's been working with me on the sort of HR agenda as well, which I will speak about in a minute, and I think she would agree we're going from strength to strength. I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Belinda Garcia, who agreed to carry on being chair of the Equality and Diversity Group. And again, I thank you for all your input, and I think you again would agree that it's going from strength to strength, and I thank you for that. I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Roodhouse. I've lost my speech now. No, seriously, Jerry, I'd like to say thank you because obviously you've been a bit of a lone wolf on the health front for the last few years, and I'm now your partner in crime. And I have to say you've got a lot of knowledge. I mean, I know I've got a bit of knowledge, but you've got a lot of knowledge about the setup, and you've been really inclusive and helpful. And between us, I think we are now making sure that the voice of Rugby residents and our voices are finally being heard. For the first time ever in the last few years, Rugby now has a health place-based care plan. It was the only one that hadn't got an up-to-date one, and that's recently been updated, and we're waiting for actions and for that to be filled out a lot more. We've also managed as well to appoint an equality officer who's doing a sterling job, which we didn't have an officer for 2 years, so that's pretty good going as well. We turned that round really quickly. For the first time ever, we have actually had an independent staff survey, and I'm pleased to tell you we've more than doubled the amount of people that actually engaged with that survey from the previous survey. So it certainly was worthwhile actually sort of going out independently. We're working with those independent providers now, looking at what the feedback is. And I'm pleased to say that the top team have really engaged in this process, and they're currently looking at what they can do in each of their areas to sort of address some of the sort of the gaps and things that need to be improving on. There will be a very big emphasis on health and well-being, very much a holistic approach. We have got challenges, some of them being alluded to earlier by the sort of portfolio holder for sort of work services unit. We have got challenges in terms of the way some of the things have been run. We've got 100 people that are on sort of contracts that aren't contracts. We've got lots of agency workers. We've got consultants, and one of the reasons we've probably got we've had a big black gap in the past is because there's been no policies being put in place to actually address that. And looking forward, I can assure you that what we'll be doing is working, and say with Councillor Dumpton, we'll be working with HR and the Chief Exec to address some of those issues. We know that we need to sort of tighten up on recruitment processes. We probably need to do a bit of job evaluation as well and rewriting of some job descriptions. We know what we've got to do, but what we've also got, for the first time ever, is some really robust workforce reporting. We've got the first time ever that I know anyway, a equality report that also looks at the protected characteristics data, so we can look at them, cross-section them, and see with the staff survey what the challenges are. Now that staff survey, along with all that data, will be used to actually develop a really strong action plan that will be looking at everything from staff health and well-being to how we can improve recruitment processes and some of this sort of leadership development stuff that we need to do. So a lot of work going on, which I feel really positive about. Also in terms of the art gallery and museum, in the last 6 months we've had over 40,000 visitors to our Rugby Art Gallery and Museum, and I think Councillor Sanderson and I have been frequent visitors there over the last 6 months, and I'm very proud of that, and the investment that we're making this year in recognising the 25th anniversary of Ragam as well, and we're very proud, aren't we, actually, Councillor Sanderson, of what's happening. There's a fantastic lineup of things that are going to be happening will cut across all of the communities. Some really exciting stuff. I would encourage you all to go along and support, because it's absolutely brilliant. And we've also, 25 seems to be a special year, doesn't it? We've got us, you've got 25 years of Ragam, and we've got 25 years of women's rugby, and we're actually investing in that as well. So it's all win-win-win. I could go on, and I didn't know really what to cover because there's so much to say. But a lot of it is really, really positive from my point of view. It has been hard work, but I do thank the officers and those members that I've worked with for us to actually start to be in a position where we can move things on in a positive way. Thank you.
Councillor Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. For those, no. I come in peace this evening. I am Borough Councillor for Woolston. I'm chair of its parish council. I'm also chair of its flood action group. But most importantly, I'm a Woolston resident. And tonight I want to, first of all, start by offering 2 thank yous. Firstly, to what I see in the budget in terms of flood protection, £300,000. Genuinely, thank you. That offers hope and a lifeline to a community. I also want to offer thanks to a councillor who's not with us this evening, Councillor Slinger, who's also our MP. I hope his absence isn't due to the 2 hours he spent today walking up and down the brook with myself and the Environment Agency. It was cold and I've only just thawed out. But thank you to him for taking the time, the genuine interest, and raising twice in the House of Commons the issues we face. £300,000 sounds like a lot of money. And it will provide some sort of flood defence, not just in Woolston, but elsewhere in the borough. We are, as a borough, getting wetter and wetter as the years go by. Woolston has endured its second flood in a year. And we now have a community who are genuinely frightened. When they go to bed at night and it starts to pitter-patter, there is that genuine fear of what will they wake up to. And that happened on the 6th of January when all the WhatsApp group went, and at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, we were racing down into the centre of the village, trying to get sandbags in place and ensure that we could at least protect some of those homes. Investment in flood protection will assist. We are struggling, ladies and gentlemen, to get that investment. The figure of 3 million hasn't been plucked out of the air, and I'll just give you a real-life anecdote. After the last flood, all the key agencies were approached into terms of what can you do and what will you do. The Environment Agency came back and they offered us 3 options. One option was to create 550 metres of new brick walls to protect the brook area in the centre of Woolston. The second option was to look at working with landowners, farmers, investing in land and attenuation ponds. The third one was dredging, and they didn't want to go near it because dredging is a dirty word in terms of the Environment Agency, and over the months we've started to learn why that is. The first 2 options I mentioned, 550 metres of wall, came in at 2.5 million. The second option of purchasing land, getting the attenuation ponds and the drainage in place, came in at between 2.8, 3 to 5 million. Then came the sting. If we use the Environment Agency, either of those options, it will only generate £780,000 of benefit. Benefit being the repairs to the property, the 15 or 16 properties, that look like they're going to be continually flooded. Is that what we want for our residents? This isn't about this side of the house, that side of the house. It's about us working together to protect my community. It could be your community next week. And by further investment, we've heard the shout-outs for investment from that side of the house, and we welcome it. The plea is go further. There are stories within this of the damage done to families, older and younger. The couple with the twins, knowing if that is where they are going to grow up and where they're going to go to school. A house that we visited this morning, an older couple who can't afford the upfront costs for flood protection and go to the local community cafe in the church, frightened that they may go home and find that their home is once again flooded. They can do nothing about it apart from put a few sandbags around the door. Well, sandbags do not prevent the sort of floods we have had in the Rugby Borough and particularly in Woolston and Brandon. We need to work together, not just the borough, the county, whatever else may be coming down the track. We've got to work with those agencies. Oh, and Severn Trent still haven't given us a response. Apologies for anybody who may have any links to Severn Trent. The silence from the Severn Trent is deafening. And again, credit to the MP for being on that case and with the Environment Agency. He's coming back with them to meet the public. That'll be a lively affair, I promise you. But the interest is there. Let's turn that interest into actions. And the alternative, you've heard from this side of the House, helps. Or if you can't do it tonight, let's sit down and work out what we can do. Because that investment in Woolston, Brandon, Granborough, Willoughby, Pailton, whoever comes next, is going to save those communities. Because I and those communities do not accept they are only worth £780,000 of investment. They want their homes safe. They want to go to bed at night feeling safe, knowing that they will wake up without what has happened twice in 12 months. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for listening, and please give it some thought. We can work together on this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Any more speakers? Councillor Roothouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few general sort of comments, really. Can I thank the Conservative group? I don't know who does it. It could be Ian or somebody else that does social media. I'm not sure. It was really great the other morning sitting down with a cup of tea and just quick flick through Facebook and just letting me know exactly what was coming down the line for tonight. So thanks for the release early. So I knew what was going on. I don't know who does that, but it did make me gulp my tea a little bit quicker. Yeah, I thought, then, of course, my wife sort of says, you're not back on that bloody politics again, are you? So, yeah, so where do we start, really? I don't know. I was sat in this chamber for a long time, and so I was quite surprised what I then read, which off that Facebook post that came through, because the amount of abuse I've had from that side over that time for the proposals that we've put forward, and this, that and the other, I have to say, could load no end of skips. I wouldn't need a road sweeper to sweep it up. You know, it's just abuse year after year after year about it. And then all of a sudden, we flip all that this year. So, which is quite an interesting thought. And then I thought, oh, crap, yeah, of course, I've got to go out pounding bloody streets now, haven't I? And knocking doors and the rest of it. So that'll look quite good on a leaflet, won't it? That'll look quite good on a leaflet, and that'll look good on a leaflet. And you lot voted against that, and you voted against that, and you that, blah, blah, blah. Can you put across me box? Oh, by the way, can you give me 100 quid, because I'm over 65 now. I'm not sure whether I'll vote for you or not, but, you know, give us 100 quid. Do I need 100 quid? No, I don't. No, exactly. But you're giving everybody 100 quid. Thanks a lot. So, it's a bit strange. The point about the budget that is in front of you, and it was done jointly, is actually, it's you know, we did pass the corporate plan, and everybody in this chamber supported that when it went through. Well, I don't remember a vote against it, or any recorded vote against the corporate plan that went through. I can stand corrected, and I haven't looked it up, but so that corporate plan went through. In order for corporate plans to work, there was a section in there, and I remember, with the meetings with the Labour group saying, how's it going to be delivered? How are you going to do it? And I was told years ago by a treasurer at the county council, he said, Jerry, decide what you want to do and we'll get the money to work with that and we'll deliver that. So tonight, because that's been adopted, this is about getting the funding to support the work through and to start delivering that work going through. And the difference about this one is, to all those years that I've sat here and got all that abuse, is actually it's not a one-year budget. This is a 3-year medium-term financial strategy that's been placed in front of you. It's progressed longer. It does go longer, but I'll come back to the U word later. But it's based on a medium-term plan linked to a medium-term corporate strategy to deliver the priorities within that document. That's what it's about. So if you read the corporate strategy, that's what's going to be delivered. And if these portfolio holders don't do it, and the officers don't do it, I'll be joining you lot to have a go at them. Because that's the task they've got to do, around the delivery side of it. And there's some stuff within that. And, yeah, Tim, I loved your speech, great. And you're dead right. You know, you hit the nail on the head, because this is about adaptation and the adaptation plan, which is part of the climate change work. And you're dead right, we do need to get around the table, and it's not just about Walston, because the climate is changing. You know, I don't know how many deniers are in this chamber tonight, but I mean, you know, there are, quite clearly, there is a difference in the climate, and you speak to farmers and you speak to most people, and things are happening. So quite clearly we need to do something, you know, and 300,000, it's, yeah, it all helps, doesn't it? But actually, we need to start working, looking forward. What can we do that? So I'd certainly sit around the table with others and yourselves and whatever, and how can we do that? Because that's the way we should work as local councillors anyhow. So I welcome what you say. And if you like, the money's there because we're playing the shenanigans of a budget night, really. But the underlying point you were making about can we please get together and work with that, regardless of political party, is dead right. Because climate goes up and above that, you know, and it's water and flooding, but also, you know, we could be ending up with drier, hotter summers. So it's not just about winter deaths, it's about summer deaths and all this sort of business as well. You know, and you think we get it bad, yeah, some other countries are getting it far, far worse as that goes forward. So this is about investing for the long term over those 3 years. And it's interesting, early on in this process, we had the Chartered Institute of Public Finance, CIPFA, come in, have a look, run the roll over everything. Local Government Association, finance officer and the finance side, come in and roll, you know, put the rulers all into this sort of stuff. And can I thank John and his team, you know, for working with that and working within us to actually let's explore this and see what's going to happen. Road sweepers, love it. I love road sweepers. I used to fix them, you know, for Rugby Portland Cement when it was Rugby Portland Cement. I didn't drive refuse freighters because I didn't have enough drivers, so, but the point about a road sweeper is perhaps you don't really need a road sweeper extra because you've got 2 already and you've got the drivers. Perhaps you should have invested in a gully cleaner to suck all the drains out, which gets blocked up because Balfour Beatty don't get there early enough to do the job. You can actually do it. I've done it in Horton Crescent. You can get the sweepers and the gullies to work together at about 6 o'clock in the morning, but all the flaming cars don't disappear, so then you get stuck. Now, a unitary authority would solve all that problem because the drains are a highways county council and the road sweeping's the borough council. So I'll tell you what, let's have a single unitary authority and we can resolve that. And perhaps we can then buy vehicles around it. And so, no doubt at the county council on Tuesday we can debate this even further and see where we go around that. Just coming back to the document here, this touches upon the inequalities across the borough. And whilst I recognise the if you like, the high-level stuff that you want to do around winter fuel payments and putting all that in, actually you don't even mention inequalities at all. And I think that's a bit damning, really, because it's the inequalities within communities and different places, old, young, wherever. Actually, if you were saying £100, yeah, to tackle equalities, wouldn't go very far, but you know, you get the message. We should be tackling inequalities and how we deliver around those elements. So the budget that's in front of you is about a medium term. It's locking in the finance for that medium term. We've put the ruler across all the reserves and the figures, thanks to John, SIPFA and other people from outside, because the work that's been going on in the Town Centre Working Group, and as Ian will know, is starting to come to fruition. And there's to be some big decisions to be made towards the end of this month within that working group as to where it steps to next. And from that point on, could well be, you know, what we're talking about is a new regeneration plan for the town centre and the work that it's going to develop. And that will, of course, cost money within that to do that. And we need to ensure that funding is there, which it is. And if you believe in rugby as I do, and have lived here quite a long time, and we actually want to do that and build this place for the future and the next generations, actually we're going to have to do that and spend the money. And we're going to have to be brave as a council to do that. And we have to take that, you've got the vision and the rest of it, park the party politics to one side, a bit like the flooding, and actually go above that and actually work together towards that ambition and drive to deliver a town fit for the future. And that's what's coming towards us, and that's why the numbers and the rest of it are sat there ready to do that. And hopefully as we move to the council in the spring and the summer, we'll be able to have those debates and that discussion. It's not going to be perfect. There might be a bit of blood on the floor, but you know, we need to work through that, because what we're talking about there is the future generation of the town. So that's why we're supporting the budget in front of us, plus the fact, you know, we worked quite hard on it as well.
Councillor Hassel.
Regarding the grant funding for pensioners, the amendment, I support it because it has an immediate effect on people in my ward today. Many of them are only slightly above the pension credit eligibility for it, and it is affecting their health and well-being. Since 1997, pensioners have had budgeted for this, and it is reprehensible they were not given at least a year's notice.
Councillor Simpson-Vince.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm going to be supporting the Conservative budget. On the flood defences, I'd quite like to add Princethorpe and Stratton-on-Dunsmore into that list of ones we're looking at. I know it was a long list you had to remember, but they've also been flooded twice in the last 12 months. And Princethorpe, the primary school, the school has to close when it's flooded because nobody can get to the school. In terms of on here, the CCTV network, the town centre CCTV network works really well and works really well with the police, Rugby Brough Council and Rugby First. It deals with a lot of antisocial behaviour. If you've never been to the control room, try and see if you can get there because it is fascinating to watch. And somewhat intriguing as to how much of the town centre is covered. So the idea of taking this out to the other urban areas, so Brownsover, Newbold, Paddocks, Hill Morton, anywhere where we've got a group of shops, you know, the technology's there now that we could go out to those areas and cover those through the same control room as well. So that's how that's ended up in here. And admittedly, it's just looking at a business case because there's going to be a lot of work involved in getting to that point. But I think in terms of an idea, the technology now would allow us to do that and do it relatively easily. I might be able to save you some money in your budget. The £100,000 for the community centre for Coton Park, for the feasibility study, I have to say actually, the Coton Park Residents Association, we were scratching our heads a little bit about this one when we saw it. The neighbourhood plan for Coton Park had a policy in there around a community centre. There was a lot of work done. There was an actual group set up that did looking at the community centre. And there were lots of discussions with Rugby Brough Council at the time. Now, then about 4 years ago, it was brought, we kind of raised it again because there was a business that was interested in working with us to have a community centre in the location that it's on the neighbourhood plan for Coton Park. Now, unfortunately, financial, COVID and everything else meant that it didn't happen, but there are some restrictions on that land. It's Section 106 land, so it has to be for community-linked use. So you can't have, for example, a Starbucks there. But there were ways that we were looking at of how you could co-fund that with a community business going in there. And again, a lot of work was done. There were plans. The legal team, planning and parks were all involved in those discussions that were about 4 years ago. So £100,000 just feels like a lot when we've already got quite a lot of that information. So happy if anyone wants to come and talk to me about what we've done before. But certainly there's quite a lot that's already there. It just seems a bit pointless reinventing the wheel when we've already got half the wheel anyway. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I've got a long speech written and Jerry Roodhouse, as always, steals my thunder. So, right. Okay. So, a budget for growth. Yeah. The old trickle-down model doesn't work anymore. Here in Rugby, we have a budget that is different. It focuses on growth. It focuses on making our economy better in the local area. It focuses on attracting more jobs, because it will, and it focuses on delivering better housing and safer, cleaner streets. An investment in communities, and a commitment to climate change amelioration as well. Many, many hours of work have gone into this budget, and I'm particularly thankful to officers for all their hard work on this. And to Councillor Mystery, because he's been here every day for the last 6 months, it feels like, looking at budgets and getting definitely into the detail. So this, I feel, is a budget that is for growth. It's prudent. It's prudent. It is prudent. But it's also ambitious for our residents. It has a focus on lifting everyone, so we have an equitable local economy and communities are not left behind. I could go on about the key programmes in this budget, such as investment in community development and engagement, such as improving the quality housing across the board, such as improving our resources to tackle antisocial behaviour. I'm sorry that our Chief Officer on Community Safety and Regulation isn't here, because his team is working extremely hard. Community wardens do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. They turn out every day in the most terrible circumstances sometimes and support our residents, whatever they're having to deal with. But they need more resources. That's why I'm particularly pleased that we're going to put more money into no-ban CCTV, which is mobile CCTV, and into antisocial behaviour resources in office and projects, so that we have the resources to tackle these things. I was in Brandon this week, and fly tipping is awful in Brandon. We need to do better. We need to tackle environmental crime better, and we need to work together to do that, and we need the resources to do it. I'm not sure our road sweeper quite going to do that. I'm proud of this budget and the work we've put into it with officers and with our ambitious programme of change. This council has stagnated for too many years, and it's time to change that, and I commend this budget. We can and will do better.
I'm looking around the room. Are there any more speakers? Oh, Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the officers that have worked on this budget, and particularly to the Labour and the Dem colleagues who have been working so hard on this. In July, I believe, 23, I brought a notice of motion to the council calling on us to invest more in the arts, invest more in music. And since then, I've been worried that it would be kicked into the long grass. It's often seen as a tertiary issue. It's not something that seems to be at the forefront of everyone's minds. And I'm particularly pleased about going off what Councillor O'Rourke has said about Ragam. Our commitment to the Love Rugby campaign, our commitment to arts and to music and to the wider culture in rugby. I'm particularly excited about that. And it's so important. When I think about Ragam, for instance, I've seen some of my friends, such as Ross Edwards, Natasha Francis-Flores, Tom Jennings, and Hannah Kemp. These are all local artists. They're friends of mine, but they're local artists too. I can't tell you what it means to them to see their work being looked at and to be presented in their local community. It's amazing. And I think what's really pertinent about the budget being discussed this week and just looking at all of this investment is thinking about why I came here in the first place, why I ran to be a councillor, why I brought this issue about music and arts to us all. I don't know if you'll all remember, but I often alluded to, in my notice of motion, the local studio down Hillmorton Road, the rugby music studio that was run by Pete Baines for many years. I went there as a teenager, played some awful music in there, really bad stuff. I'm sure some people played better stuff in there. This week, I saw a post from Pete Baines on Facebook saying, well, it's finally happened. And if you walk along Hillmorton Road now, you'll see that it's now being demolished. That building was left to rot for about a decade. And it sadly became a symbol, I think, of all of our faults in not really addressing this issue. There were people, it means so much to them that people were saying that they were taking bricks from the site because that building meant so much to them. And it really moved me when I walked down there. I saw a single flower growing out of one of the bricks there. And me being an English teacher, couldn't help but find the metaphor in that a little bit for some sort of hope and growth. But also, quite literally today, a week ago today, I, not to toot my own horn, got to play at the HMV Empire, a stage that I've seen bands like the Libertines play. I'm a rugby musician playing in Coventry, a great venue. I was really happy to be there. The person who got me that gig lives within a stone's throw of Rugby. You can see his house from the council building. And what's really nice to see is that now we can maybe start to move forward and looking at bringing creators back into the town, giving them a place here to perform, to create, to practice. And as I say, I'll just reiterate, the commitment to Love Rugby and the investment in arts and culture is really, really great. And there's been some really positive comments from everyone today, and I'm pleased to see that I think generally on the whole everyone is in support of parts of this budget. This is one I think we can all agree on. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers looking around? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Freeman.
Well, good evening, everybody. I got elected in May, so I'm a freshly minted councillor. But I've been taking an interest in what goes on in Rugby for a long time, because I've lived here for quite a while. Must be knocking on 20 years. I share Councillor Barnett's love of music, and over the years I've performed in many venues in and around Rugby. And I've done that ever since I moved here, and it's been interesting to see how the town centre has gradually declined and declined and declined. It's depressing. And what's been more depressing is in recent years I've also followed other areas of interest like roundabouts. The Avon Mill springs to mind. And 2 or 3 years ago I saw something on Facebook on a part of it which I'm now excluded from for some reason. But the former councillor in my ward posted this lovely graphic of Avon Mill roundabout and how it was going to be changed, and I thought, great, at last it's happening. At last I can get into the town centre in less than 20 minutes next time I go and play at a venue in the centre there. And I asked him, I said, when's it going to happen? So I got a response, oh, soon. I said, well, what's taking so long? Well, we're going to put together a strategic business case. I thought, oh, that's great. So how long do you think that will take? And is the money there? And have you got a plan? Can you give me a date to work with? And he did. And I couldn't work out from what he said when this lovely road improvement would arrive. So I made a few more inquiries, and it was contingent on this decision being made, this decision being made, this funding being put in place. And of course, it wasn't going to happen next week or next year, as was being implied. It was an aspiration at that stage, but it was being treated as if it was a certainty. And when I used to read about the plans for regenerating the town centre, I got the same feeling. It was something that was going to happen in the distant future. Now, sometimes I get rather depressed about it because I go and play at these venues, and you'd be driving down a darkened street where there was nothing open, there was nothing going on. And I really didn't like that, not least because when you open the car doors to get some rather expensive equipment out, you turn your back for 2 seconds and it's off down the road with somebody else. So it wasn't pleasant. Now, I've read several of the council's budgets, and I've read this one, and great, at last we're getting some investment. And investment in services, that's important. It's a growing town. We've got to keep up. But capital investment is also important. And it means putting your hands in your pocket and making it happen. And at last we've seen movement. The town centre regeneration plan is going forward. It's being treated seriously. It will yield some very nice results. But we're also trying to link up with other bodies to make stuff happen. We're not just looking inwardly, we're looking about partnering to get the Avon Mill development done. There's a lot of creative thinking going on here, and we're going to get some really good results in a few years. So I support this budget. I'm afraid I can't bring myself to support the amendment that's been proposed, but nice effort, lads.
Any more speakers? Councillor Carradine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you very much for pronouncing my name correctly this time. We all came to the politics because we have to give voices to our residents. And as a resident of Cotton Park, this is the first time we have received something in our budget regarding Cotton Park, improvement in the Cotton Park area. The first thing is thank you for our leader, Michael Moran, and Mr. Roadhouse to come up with a plan to do a feasibility study for our community center. Because in Cotton Park, we are very much desperate for a community center. I do agree, there was a plan 4 or 5 years ago, but that time the plan was there, but there is no political will to carry on through it. But I believe this time we have some political will to carry on through it. So that's the difference between then and now. The second thing is, I followed the budget in this chamber for the past 2 years. One time I sat here last year, and the previous year I sat upstairs. And both of the time I never heard a single word called Cotton Park or Brownsover. This time I heard twice Councillor Daly saying Brownsover and Councillor Simpson-Vince saying Brownsover. So this itself an achievement that our ward is getting recognized in this chamber somehow. But what I want to say is more investment in my ward. Particularly, we have quite a lot of robberies over the Christmas time. And also, we need more investment to grow some businesses around there. People are struggling in our ward. So I put forward that the budget here that our team is proposing is fair budget, and it is for growth for the whole of Rugby. And I believe this budget is going to make some changes in our ward, in our Rugby itself. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Any other speakers? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. I hadn't planned to speak, actually. I was thinking I might see if I got angry like I did last year, because I find that's a good fire to actually think of something to say. But actually, just listening to everything in the chamber, and it's been very peaceful in here, really, not really the kind of fireworks that there were last year. I want to say, first of all, thank you to all the officers who have worked so incredibly hard with us this year. This year, things have really moved at pace, and then they've got faster and they've moved at an even faster pace, and it's really like a juggernaut moving through. And so supporting a budget which actually has a medium-term plan, it has a momentum behind it, it's about 3 years, it's about moving forward. It's not about short-termism, it's not about 1 year. Unfortunately, with the amendment, most of that was just about 1 year. It's not about short-termism here anymore. It's not about can we cut corners anymore. It's actually about let's get this stuff right. So I'm really pleased to see the investment that's going in. I'm really pleased to see that the town centre regeneration work is going to happen, and knowing the momentum that there is across the chamber for that to happen. I'm really pleased that actually there's a focus on inequality. It's really important for social cohesion that we actually tackle inequality. If we don't want riots on our streets, we need to tackle inequality. It's really, really important. So we are not here as a council to turn a profit. We're here to create value for our residents, 100%. And I do agree with my colleagues across the chamber, our reserves should be here for the residents of Rugby, to be spent on the residents of Rugby. And I certainly would support that happening over the near term as we move, if we do, towards a unitary organisation. But it's important how we spend that money. And it's important that we focus on things like health inequality, that we look at income inequality, that we actually look at improving our town centre. And that's why I will be supporting this budget, because we have finally moved from 1 year short-termism into an actual proper plan with proper momentum behind it. Thank you.
Looking around, Councillor Siani.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it very brief, but I think we've spoken about arts and
and music. And I think it's really important that in terms of the diversity of rugby and how we bring together the arts, music, it brings people together, it creates that cohesion that was mentioned. And many times we put it to a side, but I think that also encourages pluralism. It encourages us to learn about each other through the arts. It's a dynamic. It's something that can, it's a catalyst for change. And I think sometimes we forget it and think it's just entertainment, but it's not entertainment. It's much, much more than that. It's the richness of our community and the diverse talents that we have in rugby.
Are there any more speakers? I'm looking around the room. Councillor Picker?
I believe I would. I think I'll start by sort of echoing what Councillor Mackenzie just said, that this does seem to be a bit more of an even-tempered budget debate than perhaps last year. I'll do my best to stay on those lines, but I can't promise that'll happen. And Councillor Roothouse, I don't do our Facebook, but I'll leave you on tenterhooks as to who does. But not me, my lord. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this budget. There's a lot of good stuff in the Conservative amendment that I will be supporting. I think Councillor Moran's spoken about some of the stuff behind the scenes, and you said it was the first non-Conservative budget, and I suppose from a party political point of view, that is correct. You are not the Conservative Party. But I do think it is actually quite a Conservative budget in terms of the underlying strategy. It is still looking at how we can make best use of those reserves. I'd also, you described us inheriting a basket case from us. I don't agree with that at all, and I think the fact that we've got things like Rugby Art Gallery and Museum, which, as you've said, celebrating its 25th year anniversary, we've been able to keep that open with good stewardship of the public funds. I think you're doing a disservice to some of your colleagues around the country, Councillor Moran, who are running councils that are financial basket cases. And I noticed that in the advertiser and in the press you put out in support of this budget, you said you weren't having to raise council tax beyond 2.99% or borrow significant amounts of money, unlike a number of your colleagues elsewhere in the country who are having to breach that 2.99 principle. And again, I would put it to you that you're able to do that because you have inherited a council that was fiscally well run and was able to invest in things in the future. I also think it's a little bit disingenuous, some of the commentary we've had from the other side, because if you put forward things in a one-year thing, it's short-termism. If, on the other hand, you set up a multi-year cross-party working group backed by significant budgetary reserves in order to deliver a town centre regeneration scheme that you know will take a number of years to come to fruition, apparently nothing happens, even though, as Councillor Roothouse knows, as chair of the working group, as Councillor Moran knows, as a member of that working group, an awful lot of work has been going on behind the scenes. An awful lot of things are starting to come forward, and I think perhaps a little bit of correlation rather than causation there. I also picked up on the comments from Councillor Edwards, about growth. We all want growth, we all want to see the high street improve, we all want to attract better businesses. Again, I noted some of the commentary. I think a shop in Rugby closed down a few months ago as part of a national chain, or is about to close. I can't remember exactly when it was closing. Again, citing a direct consequence, not of anything that's happened in this chamber, citing as a direct consequence the budget introduced by your government when they came into power. National insurance, you can read it in the report, in the budget. There is some funding available for national insurance to compensate our employees. The report suggests that it may not be the whole amount, and of course, any of that funding will only come to direct employees of this council. Costs that we have to pay going forward on, say, major investment projects are going to be hit by that tax on jobs. You cannot deny it. I was also really, really hoping that we might hear a little bit more about the Love Rugby Festival? Anyone? There's nothing here for us to discuss. There's nothing here for us to discuss. There's no proposals. It's all business cases to be done coming forward, which again is exactly what you've criticised us for. So I'm sorry. The final point I wanted to make, and there are some things that are good about this budget, some things that are potentially positive steps forward, some of the stuff about the restructuring. But I do think it is, again, a little bit disingenuous to suggest that there was some sort of reticence to spend reserves in the town centre, given the proposals we put together, which we then involved the other two parties in order to develop some schemes to come forward. So I do think that is perhaps a little bit of a sleight of hand trick, especially in terms of the changes to the reserves, by essentially consolidating them into one block. That's not new money that can be spent, that's the same reserves. And on page 41 of the appendix, the risk profile is still there. That hasn't changed. So if those risks materialise, that funding will have to be drawn down. Now, they're unlikely to, and as others have alluded to, unitary might change that. I think we'll have a debate on that perhaps at another time. But it feels a little bit like you found yourselves in the same situation we did about having to approach budgets. You talk about a medium-term financial plan. There is, again, business rates reset. We still don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know whether Councillor Moran's going to get a call from the leader of, sorry, not the leader of the House, the Speaker of the House, because you seem to be implying that you know what's going to happen with business rates reserves. There's a chunk of funding in there that's forecast business rates reserve, but I can't find any evidence to back that up to changes in business rates. Apparently it's coming in April 26, but again, no details. The only thing I could find on business rates is that the relief for businesses has been reduced again. So that's, again, a tax on our businesses. So I think the biggest threat to growth in this borough and in this country are the occupants of 10 and 11 Downing Street. Although, to be fair to the leader of the council, because I have just been, not rude, but a little bit, I believe I'm correct in saying that you have more business experience than the entire Westminster Cabinet put together, which I should point out is a damning indictment of them and not necessarily an endorsement of the leader of the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't have a speech planned. I thought I'd read the room and listen and absorb. And yeah, it's interesting, Councillor Picker, that you should talk about the word disingenuous and sort of the incongruence of the conversation tonight, because that is how I felt sitting and listening. And when I also saw the Facebook post as well and got that early shot across the bows, which was great. It feels very disingenuous to read a budget that is an amendment such as this to invest when it's just not been the practice when the Conservative Party were in administration locally. And I think for Councillor Picker to suggest that we're putting forward business cases and these things can take time and that somehow that makes us the same as the previous administration, I'd point to the simple fact that we have been in administration, about 6 months, is it? About 6 months. The last administration was in for 20 years. So to kind of cite business cases about the town centre regeneration and plans to spend reserves when you stood idly by and watched the situation deteriorate as much as it did, I just can't square that. I don't know how you can square that and seriously come forward and say those things, frankly. So, yeah, judge us on what we're doing and what we've done. So turning to the positive and what, it is a huge privilege to be in this position. And I kind of came into politics a bit by accident because I bumped into Maggie at a Labour group meeting, and the rest is history, because everybody who knows Councillor O'Rourke knows she's very, very persuasive. And, you know, for me, I was frustrated by national politics, local politics, as a person, you know, as a mother, and as a long-term resident of Rugby, and just feeling so frustrated. And so to now, like literally a couple of years, you know, on, to be in this position and to be working with fantastic officers. So thank you to Thomas Griffiths, who's here. Thank you very much as Chief Officer for Digital and Comms. And to Nicola, who hopefully is watching the live stream, and I'll say thank you to you now, Nicholas, who, you know, it's been a learning curve for me, and they've been so generous with their time and their expertise. And it's been a pleasure to really be able to, you know, empower them and support them, because they are excellent, and what they need from their leadership, from the political leadership, is the support to help them and their teams flourish. And so a lot of the talk has been about the promises and the kind of what I would describe as, you know, it's politicking for it's pre-electioneering. That's what I read when I read the budget, the amendment that's been put forward. When you read our budget, you read an evidence-based approach to delivering a corporate plan, which is in itself evidence-based. What will flow next, and it, you know, and so we haven't spoken much about business as usual, but it's the business as usual that will actually support the stability and the delivery of these transformational ideas that we have. And so, yeah, coming back to Nicola and her team, you know, we have, some of this work had started, in fairness, you know, with the previous administration agreeing to do an economic strategy and bringing in that, you know, economic development team. This budget takes that forward, embeds it into the structure of the organisation, and that economic strategy will drive the local plan, and we'll consider our whole economy, you know, our villages too, and making sure that we are, you know, investing to help our whole borough to thrive. I had scribbled a little note here, you know, about that, and about thinking about the whole borough as well. You know, we've spoken a lot about the town centre, but thinking about the wider borough and our villages, and growing up in a village, you know, and kind of being an ordinary village kid and watching the place I loved and called home become very much a commuter village that I was never going to be able to afford to live there when I grew up. You know, we have that a lot across our, you know, our borough. We have families then that, you know, kids who'd like to grow up live in the village in which they grew up and are just not able to, which it feels sad to me, because you're fragmenting communities. So, you know, I feel really hopeful that through the local plan process, we can really think about our villages in a different way, and really help them to thrive for the families of the grown-ups now living there, so that they can thrive as communities and not all turn into a commuter belt. So yeah, I'm excited by all those things. Gypsy Travellers, I think that's been mentioned, you know, that we can bring that forward. You know, these, like I say, I'm describing some of the business as usual, but that takes investment too, and it takes leadership, and we're bringing both of those things. On the point around flooding, it's a kind of very much flooding, climate change, all of that. It is a cross-cutting agenda. Of course, you know, we have our portfolio holder with overarching responsibility around climate change. However, of course, it crosses over with mine and with other colleagues as well, because actually it affects us all, and it affects all dimensions of the business. So with my portfolio hat on, I'm very keen, obviously, working with Councillor Livesey, but I'm very happy to meet with you, Councillor Willis, and hear some more about the work that you've done around this. And I was there at the climate change event that we hosted, and heard your speech there too. But I'd like to, yeah, I think we do need to work cross-party on that. In terms of the investment, though, that we have allocated, that 300k, it is to help us to understand the problem more and where the other levers are and where the other funding mechanisms are. Now, I hear from you, you've done some of that work. There's some more work that we can do. And I think that's where we are being careful in places with this budget. It's not to pluck, you know, and I appreciate you, there is some evidence to your numbers, and it was great to hear the evidence to your numbers tonight. But we really do need to get into that evidence. We need to look sideways as well at what other sources of income there might be. And I think that's another area that we have, you know, judge us by what we're doing that. And, you know, we're looking for opportunities to invest, to save, to improve efficiencies we've started delivering. If I talk now, I'm going to swing to talk to the other part of my portfolio around digital and transformation. And for me, it's... So I'm just picking up on some body language.
Sorry, I'm really struggling with the lights. Be excused.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I've got a terrible migraine. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm struggling. Do you mind if I go?
Yeah. I hope you feel better soon. All right. Yeah, so I was just going to come and sort of finish off by talking a little bit about, you know, that investor save, that, you know, the early shoots of change that we're bringing in within the confines of the budget that we would set, which we will build on with this progressive budget that we have set for next year around digital and comms. So, you know, we have delivered some transformation already in terms of the systems that we're using. That's bringing some results. We're now 96.6% of calls answered in the January data. So, you know, there are some shoots of change, and, you know, that's very early, actually, in terms of our administration. And this will help us get further. So, you know, I'm very grateful to the work and the collaborative work that we have going on with, especially for me, Councillor Mackenzie, who is, fantastically collaborative and challenging too, so in a good way. I know that if I, you know, put a foot wrong or you know, I'm going to be held to account, which is good. I want to be held to account. And that's exactly the relationship that we have. Us two personally, but I think as a group to group as well, that we take it really seriously what we are doing, and we want to make sure that we spend the money that the people of Rugby trust us with wisely, and that we invest to save and we invest to grow. Thank you.
Just looking around the room, any more speakers? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mistry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being the seconders, I'll have a little say. I'm going to switch this up. I've got it. They keep telling me they got it right, but they haven't. Mr. Mayor, when you get to my age, the grey matter isn't as sharp and very selective in my hearing. Just two facts. Councillor Poole, no reflection on the age. On the capital scheme regarding the Hillmorton recreation ground, you cannot put in, I hope the Chief Financial Officer correct me, into the general fund. It's got to be outside in the capital scheme. And it's in the scheme on page 5 of the booklet. And just to be factually correct, the number of people in the pensioners' age group isn't 17,000. If you look at it, there's a document I've just seen, it's 21,385, which represent 18% on the Conservative resolution. Anyway, Mr. Bay, back to my speech. I wish to place on record my sincere thanks to John Illingworth and his financial team, and all the council's leadership team in helping to shape the new corporate strategy and the base budget for 2025 and 26. I also want to extend my thanks to Councillor Bill Lewis, who have been with me in shaping the budget. And first time in my life, he had to explain to Mrs. Lewis why was he disappearing, every morning into the town or to see the chief financial officer. And I can assure you, Mrs. Lewis, he hasn't got a fancy woman. Okay. Sorry. It's working it out. He's going to explain. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, the council's new Labour administration, working collaboratively with the Liberal Democrat group, is delivering on a new approach to the management of the council finances, which is to invest to save and invest to grow. It is essential that the council financial resources are not just aligned to support the delivery of the corporate strategy, but also to set up to address the fundamental issues within the council that have previously inhibited the delivery of positive outcomes to Rugby residents and businesses. Mr. Mayor, the 4 pillars that underpinning the new strategy and direction of travel for our 4 key priorities are a healthier, thriving, greener and fairer rugby. For each key priority, the strategy sets out that the council plan to achieve while also defining successful outcome. The base budget in the booklet sets out a new approach to reserves and lists indicative capital schemes which will benefit the Borough of Rugby and delivery of the corporate strategy in the medium-term financial plan. This is important. Mr. Mayor, from 1st of April 2025, in total, the council tax band D for Rugby Brough Council, our part, will be 2.99, which equates to only £6.49 per annum. When you compare it with the Tory-run county council, Conservative-runs, police and crime commissioners, you'll be shocked that when the public see the tax bills dropping through their letterbox soon, the county council part is £86.76. The police and crime part of it, £14. So our 6.49 is drop in the ocean compared to what the service that we are providing. So when people criticize, just remember where the money is going. The approach taken to delivering a balanced budget has significantly changed from previous years. The budget for 2025-26 has an investment of £3.9 million in services to ensure that the costs are aligned with the projected service demands of the next financial year. Included within this growth is a £1.3 million budget for delivering the aspiration of the corporate strategy, and the two aims is to reduce inequality and setting an agenda for sustainable economic growth in the borough. Mr. Mayor, in our new medium-term financial plan, policy on the business rate retention will be using our reserve balances to progress a number of schemes in the coming years to support the delivery of a healthier, thriving, greener, fairer rugby. One service, Mr. Mayor, which impacts every resident in the borough is the bin collection. And this administration is investing £1 million more in the operation of in the work service unit, which will help to improve and stabilize the service. We also recognize that the tangible progress in modernizing and transforming our services has been limited in previous years, and we need to see much more rapid changes. Previous effort to commercialize our services and generate new income sources have also not brought in the revenue that we should have, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I propose in front of us today is a budget which is to invest to save, invest to grow, and I second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You just turn your mic off for Councillor Mystery. Thank you. I'm assuming that's all speakers. Just looking around just in case anybody been missed. So on that note, we're going to go back to Councillor Poole for his right to reply on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I think it might have been a slip of the tongue, Councillor Moran. The Rugby Minister, have we got one?
I'll clarify in due course.
It's either yes or no.
A minister came to Rugby.
It didn't say that in the speech. It said our Minister from Rugby.
No, a minister came to Rugby.
I'll carry on. Secondly, I'm not a basket case, and neither are my group. So I'll take exception to that. Most of the points have been taken up by my colleague here, Councillor Picker. Councillor Sanderson, you've been here long enough to know footpaths and roads are nothing to do with RBC, County Council.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The bylaws are actually Rugby's responsibility. That's a fact.
Potholes in the road are County Council. Footpaths, okay. And anyway.
I'll explain to you later, Derek.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Always count on your wisdom. Thank you. Councillor Edwards, Brandon. I hope you're referring to. Yeah, Brandon Lane. Proper name, Station Lane. But anyway, are you referring to the detritus on the bend as you go towards where they've hacked those fields and trees? Right. I've reported that twice, and my county council has reported it. Now, I think you'll find that's on private land, and we won't collect it. So if you could check up, you're the portfolio holder. Okay, thank you. I've got no other comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we now go to Councillor Moran for your right to reply.
Thank you. Looking forward to this. Right, where to start? Apologies, clearly, Councillor Poole, if I offended you for not attending some of your cabinet meetings. I didn't know I missed much, but I apologise. When I'm saying it was a basket case of a council, I mean the body of the council, not the individuals particularly. Just to clarify, you managed a basket case council, but you and yourself are not a basket case. Do you know something like this? You know, we're trying to work out which way to go. Not the remotest, but angry, but genuinely disappointed. And as I'm thinking, that's what I'm feeling. That's what my mum used to say when it was serious. So I'm going to try and do my best here, because despite all of this collective experience, genuinely on your side of the chamber, you just don't get it. And I think fundamentally is the difference between a more progressive council, and I think some of you individually, and I know you know who you are, you're wearing the wrong rosette. Because I genuinely think you must look at yourself, I'm wasting my time. Because what we're about on this side of the town hall chamber is doing things. You know, as a councillor, the money's not great. The hours aren't great. You get abuse left, right and centre. What's the imperative? What's the reason we're trying to do things? And I think for us, what galvanises us and what enthuses us is trying to change and make a difference. The most fundamental point that I thought we'd get into here, and I'm glad you raised it eventually, Councillor Picker, is regarding this council finances and a black hole. Respectfully, Councillor Poole, I don't know quite where you went, but you're accusing me of referencing national politics, but you raised Africa, public sector workers, etc. So the relevance to the government's black hole, for me, is there was a big black hole in the national economy. You can shake your head, Councillor Hassel. It was brilliant to hear your voice before. But for a national government, either they paid public sector workers whatever the 8 or 9 billion, or they didn't. The immigration bill, I appreciate, it may not be the greatest topic, but there was £7 billion to pay on an immigration bill. So there's the national black hole, whether it's 15 billion or 20 billion. But what I meant by a black hole here in Rugby was in the sense of how you can't understand a black hole. Because council finances, when I interrogated budgets in previous years, seemed to just drift off into this never, never. The gap between income and expenditure between Rugby Brough Council in all those council budgets from the Conservatives was never being closed. It was being closed by a top-up at the end, like a drop of ice, dollop of ice cream on an apple pie. Go on, stick that on the end, that'll fix it. You were never trying to fundamentally fix and address the issues of departments that were chronically underfunded, or the whole issue about not having the correct workforce here and there. So it was a black hole because it was never ending. It made no sense, and inherent within that, you never grasped the nettle about what to do with the reserves. Councillor Picker, we took multiple independent advice on managing reserves. We took advice from national government. There will be a reset to business rates, as has been advised. It will not be a cliff edge. It will not go off at day one. So we've taken a considered, advised approach to reserves that give us a clear bandwidth of capital investment. You could have done that any day you wanted to in all those years, but you didn't. And I think that's where it gets to. I go back to my earlier point. You forget the role, I think, personally, respectfully, of what a local council is supposed to be. We're supposed to serve residents, deliver services to the best of our ability, not simply hive money into a reserve bank balance for some indefinite scenario. What the hell's that? That's not achieving anything. We took a decision, working with independent advisors, to have a calculated policy on reserves that creates a capital, pool of capital that we can invest in. And in terms of talking about investment, and Councillor Daly, again, probably second favourite Conservative, but you made the point. You made the point about protecting Rugby's reserves. Well, geez, the very best way to have done that. So when I've gone to those meetings in devolution with Warwickshire County Council, if you'd have had a plan, and an investment programme that helps guarantee, it enshrines it, but you did nothing. Councillor Picker and Paul, we're going to have great fun debating regeneration plans. That's going to take serious investment and serious money, and I welcome those debates. You gave me some backhanded compliment about my business experience being greater than the Cabinet in Westminster. I would never profess to go there. But again, if we're going down this line respectfully, I do think I've got more business experience than the Conservative Cabinet put together. So as we're moving forward, let's put our experience where our mouth is. But do you know who did that at the end of your tenure? Those over 100 local businesses that took completely a significant step to sign a letter of no confidence in your administration. So, to be really clear, when we're talking about Rugby Town Centre regeneration, there's an old background programme, it's gone, it's on the shelf. We're now talking about a new delivery programme. That's one that I believe local businesses will get behind. But joining it on its shelf is that old Allies and Morrison report. £271,000 was spent on that. It will never see the light of day. I told you at the time a couple of years ago, Councillor Simpson-Vince and I exchanged pathways, joining the council, leaving the council. You commended Councillor Simpson-Vince at the time, or Seb Lowe did, for the great work of the Allies and Morrison report. That £271,000 will never be used. Absolutely worthless. Which, again, lets me to bring on, we talk about town centre regeneration, and you talk about Facebook. And again, like Councillor Roodhouse, it was great to learn of different elements coming on your budget through Facebook. Whoever does your Facebook, honestly, someone needs to have a serious word, because it mentioned parish council, investment in the parish council on Facebook. It doesn't in your budget, but maybe you changed your approach on investment in parish councils over the last two days. But also your Facebook has a worrying trend of, all I can say is peddling mistruths. Last June, your Facebook, it's great, it's easy to call it Facebook, because that's an anonymous box, right? Whoever does the Conservative Facebook made a statement about being in development plans in great advancement and being in negotiations with 2 developers. We will see in the coming months, and you will see firsthand what negotiating with developers actually is, as opposed to putting something for a cheap headline on Facebook. But look, that's a bit of fun. What is serious about when mistruths are put on Facebook is when it causes alarm. Like, for example, when talk about council bin collections, there was some scare story about rural bins not being collected. Not only was that not true, it was your own policy. You were mocking your own policy, but you didn't have the heart to follow it through. It beggars belief. I'm trying to catch up with some of the different points made. Rugby Art Gallery was mentioned. I might be wrong, but my predecessor, long-distant predecessor as a Labour leader, Brian Levy, had a hand in Rugby Art Gallery. I put it for the debate, and Councillor Roothouse, I'm sure. It does lead me to a little dig that, you know, of all the things for a Conservative administration to point to, credit to in this council for what they've delivered. Again, I've been a resident for 25 years before I became a councillor. There was a World Rugby Hall of Fame in that building, and it's gone. I personally wouldn't be boasting about being the administration that overseen that farce. Going back to the serious point, what we're here about is trying to deliver. So, Councillor Willis, absolutely want to work with you and other communities on flood defences. Categorically. We need to cut our cloth. So a feasibility study is what it is. Whether it's from Warwickshire County Council, I don't know who's got better relations with Warwickshire County Council these days. I can try and put a good word in tomorrow. But investment is probably required from Warwickshire County Council, or the Environment Agency, or DEFRA, or whatever it's going to be. But taking £3 million out from these reserves in one hit does seem quite a lot. But just to appease my great colleague, Councillor Harrington, do you know what really should be paying for flood defences? SIL, Community Infrastructure Levy. £19.8 million you did not collect. And just to preempt comments that come from former councillors on your side, the only councils that do not have a SIL are those councils that cannot attract a developer. If you can attract developers like Rugby can, we beat them away with a stick. Not one developer in the last year has mentioned SIL as being a disincentive. So when we talk about major capital investment, Councillor Willis, your flood defences, and others, under your watch, you purposefully ignored your own government, Cameron's government, to introduce SIL. I genuinely think that's shameful. And if it's the last word I say in it, I'll say SIL as I'm going out the door. Because that's extra money that you I don't know, is it incompetence? Or was there something more concerted of not putting a SIL levy on development? That would have made a massive difference. Councillor St Vince, you talked about the Coden Park Community Centre. Again, you mentioned the CPRA. I set the thing up 15 years ago. You've not been quite a county councillor for that long, but you've been a county councillor for a very long time, with a Conservative council in Warwick and a Conservative administration here. But as a pattern, you did nothing. Talking now, retrospectively, that we had an idea 4 years ago, doesn't cut it. So the dividing message, what we're trying to achieve here is progress. And so for that reason, working collaboratively over a medium-term plan, I do commend this budget for approval. Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to do a vote on the amendment to be voted on. This is going to be a recorded vote, so I'm going to hand over to the Deputy Chief Executive.
Thank you. If I could ask members to reply for, against or abstain. And first of all, as Mr Mayor says, we'll take the vote on the amendment. So start with Councillor Barnett.
Against.
Councillor Bennett. Against. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Daly.
For.
Councillor Dumbleton.
Against.
Councillor Claire Edwards. Councillor Freeman.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
For.
Councillor Gillias. Councillor Harrington.
Yes.
Councillor Hassel.
For.
Councillor Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Howling.
For.
Councillor Caradia.
Against.
Councillor Dale Keeling.
For.
Councillor John Keeling.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Lewis. Councillor Livesey.
Against.
Councillor Maudis. Councillor Mackenzie.
Against.
Councillor Mistreet.
Against.
Councillor Moran.
Against.
Councillor Newt.
Against.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Against.
Councillor Pickett. Councillor Poole. Councillor Robinson.
Against.
Councillor Roothouse. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Sayani. Councillor Simpson Vince. Councillor Srivastava. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Timms. Councillor Trimble.
Against.
Councillor Ward.
For.
And Councillor Willis.
For.
So that's 16 votes for and 23 against, so the amendment is defeated.
Yeah, so we're now going to vote on the what's the wording? The initial. So the Deputy Chief Executive will now read out the names of members present for the vote. The initial.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is the vote for the substantive motion. So again, if members could reply with for, against or abstain, starting with Councillor Barnett.
For.
Councillor Bennett. For. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Daly.
Against.
Councillor Dumbleton.
For.
Councillor Claire Edwards. Councillor Freeman. Councillor Garcia. Councillor Gillias. Councillor Harrington. Councillor Hassel. Councillor Henderson. Councillor Howling. Councillor Caradia. Councillor Dale Keeling. Councillor John Keeling.
Against.
Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Livesey.
For.
Councillor Maudis. Councillor Mackenzie.
For.
Councillor Mistry. Councillor Moran. Councillor New.
For.
Councillor O'Rourke. Councillor Picker. Councillor Poole. Councillor Robinson. Councillor Roothouse. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Sayani, Councillor Simpson-Vince, Councillor Srivastava, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Timms, Councillor Trimble,
For.
Councillor Ward,
Against.
and Councillor Willis.
Against.
Thank you. And that is 23 votes for and 16 votes against. So the vote's carried.
Okay, yeah, so the motion is carried. So now moving on to item 6B, to receive the report of Audit and Ethics Committee, dated the 12th of December 2024. In submitting the reports of Audit and Ethics Committee, if members wish to raise questions or to comment, will they please indicate they wish to do so when I call the item? Councillor Mistry, will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 1 of the report, titled Treasury Management Mid-Year Report 2024-25?
I move so, Mr. Mayor.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mistry, would you like to introduce the report?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Right, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So on that note, do we have any speakers on this report? No? Okay, so Councillor Mistry, would you like to reply to yourself?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think.
Kind of guessed that one. Okay, so I will now submit for confirmation and adoption of the whole report. Those in favour, please show. The motion is carried. So now on to item 7. Yes, yeah, just allowing time here. So the next item is to receive the report of the Human Resources Manager set out at item 7A of the agenda. The report concerns the appointment of the Council's Acting Chief Executive and Head of Paid Services. Councillor Moran, will you move the report?
I will.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to speak on this, Councillor Moran? Or?
No, I will. I will. It's incredibly important. I'm very happy to commend our Deputy Chief Executive to step up into the role of Acting Chief Executive. He's been fantastic. It's been a lot of work, a lot of challenging times as we've debated and exchanged across the chamber. We've not been quiet, we've not been idle, and we've not held back. I'm trying to do how best to refer to Dan. Dan has been great in terms of knitting a cohesive thread through that, but also having that sort of professional integrity. And it's part of a jigsaw, part of a structure that must change to go forward to reflect the functioning of a modern and effective council. So really, really happy to commend this. We went through a good interview process. There were a number of candidates. It's what we need, good, healthy transparency to move the council forward. So very happy to commend this report. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not very often I agree with the leader. Today I do. I was part of the interview panel along with Councillor Moran and Councillor O'Rourke and Councillor Roodhouse. It was vigorous and it was fair, and I agree with the decision made by the panel, and both candidates were excellent, and I move that he be given the position. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo the comments that have been made by both Eric and Michael on this. Dan reminded me, I think it was at the interview, he said he first met me, I think, 17 years ago. I hadn't realised it was that. And of course, he was with Warwickshire County Council then, and he started his well, didn't start his life there, but getting to know us and getting to know rugby then from his work that he did within the county before he moved here. But yes, the work that he's picked up and the way that that's developed and brought forward, I think we've all seen that at every level that have had any engagement with him, and I think that's really helpful. The interview presence, I agree with Derek. It was well done, and it was, you know, congratulations to the people that came through and presented and took that forward. And I'm sure that their careers will be developed over time as we go forward as well. So it's the right choice for this council at this point in time.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Just to say I entirely agree. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers apart from those on the panel? Councillor Gillius?
Well, yes, because I remember Dan when he had black hair, you see, and and it's starting to get as grey as mine, isn't it? But Dan used to be, I think you took the minutes and whatnot, the secretary of the area committee for the county, and I remember seeing him well over 20 years ago. So you know. Yeah. So he's got lots of experience, and I support him. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this? No? Okay. Okay, hang on, we've got to do it to the vote first. Hang on. So those in favour first, please show. That's unanimous. The motion is carried. Yeah. Let's call him back in. Oh, he's there. He's listening. No, he wasn't. Yeah. That's not on the agenda, but yeah. Would you like to give a speech? Yeah.
Just say thank you very much. Really grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all to do what's right for the council and what's right for the borough.
Okay, we now move on to the next item. So the next item is to receive the report of the monitoring officer set out at item 7B of the agenda. The report concerns updates to the council's constitution. Councillor Mistry, will you move the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move so. Thank you.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mistry, would you like to speak on the report?
Just a couple of things. It's been through the Constitution Working Party, and it's been in consultation with the employee representative and various, the employee groups, pressure group, whatever you want to call it. And this is not my report. It's come through Standard and Ethics. It's been straight from Working Party. But I will support what's been proposed today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other speakers? No? Okay, I think we'll just go straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the monitoring officer set out at item 7C of the agenda. The report concerns updates to the council's contract standing orders. Councillor Mistry, will you move the report?
Keeping me busy today, Mr. Mayor. I move so.
And who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to speak on the report, Councillor Mistry?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I was waiting for that. Any speakers on this one? No? Okay, let's put it straight to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Motion is carried. Next is item 8, so notices of motion pursuant to Standing Order 11. In accordance with Council standing orders, there are no motions on notice to be considered this evening. And that concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you for your attendance.